In the last video, we got to see one example of an application of parabolas dealing with satellite dishes. In this video, we're going to take a look at another example that involves a solar furnace. And this is a photo of a solar furnace that I visited in Uzbekistan. And solar furnaces are these really fascinating structures that consist of a few different parts. First, there is a parabolic shaped mirror. It's the same shape that we have for a satellite dish. And then there is a kind of receiver here that we'll talk about later. But what you don't see in this photo, kind of on the other side, far on the right, there are a bunch of other mirrors, and those mirrors can change positions. They can change the angles. And what they do is they move those mirrors, which are flat, so that they're in just the right position so that the sunlight is reflected off of those mirrors and directly into this big parabolic mirror in the main structure. And these other mirrors, the whole point is to make it so the sunlight is hitting this parabolic mirror directly on. So when it hits the mirror, we'll look at this drawing now, all of the rays of sun are coming directly into that big parabolic mirror, and so all of them are reflected off into that focal point, which is kind of inside this building. Now, the whole point of this is to harness the sun's energy and direct all of those sun's rays to one point. And this device is able to heat up that focal point to 3,000 degrees Celsius, which is enough to do all sorts of really fascinating research. They can find the melting points of different materials by heating things up slowly and seeing when they melt. And they can also test to see whether or not a material would be suitable for use on a space shuttle, because we know that when they re-enter the atmosphere, they get very, very hot. So research is done here to see whether or not material would withstand the re-entry process. So anyways, that is a solar furnace. I was fascinated to learn about it when I visited it in Uzbekistan. There's also another one in the south of France. I think those are the only two ones that are still in operation. But now that we've learned a little bit about those, let's take a look at an example problem about the solar furnace. In Uzbekistan, there is a structure called a solar furnace, which consists of a parabolic mirror that reflects the sun's rays to a focal point. If the parabolic mirror is 45 meters wide and the depth at the center is 7 meters, find the distance between the receiver and the vertex. So again, we are going to draw our parabolic mirror, and we're going to put the vertex at the origin. Now, we know that the receiver is 45 meters wide, and so each of these sides is going to be half of that, which is 22.5 meters. And we know that the depth at the center is 7 meters. So what this tells us is that this point right here on the rim is located at the coordinates 22.5, 7. And so just like the last problem, we know that this parabola has an equation in the form x squared equals 4py. And because the point 22.5, 7 is on this curve, we know that if we plug in 22.5 for x and 7 for y, that will give us an equation that we can solve to figure out the value of p, which will tell us exactly how far away the focal point is or the receiver is from the vertex. So if we take 22.5 and square it, we get 506.25. And then, of course, 4 times 7 is 28. So we get 506.25 equals 28p. To get P alone, we divide both sides by 28. And then that gives us P is, and I'm going to write approximately equal to, because if we divide that by 28, we get an answer that's approximately 18.08. And because that is the value of P, P tells us how far away the focal point is from the vertex, and so that ends up being our answer. So the receiver is 18.08, actually is about, because that is an approximation, 18.08 meters from the vertex. And it's important to be able to calculate that because that tells us where the focal point is, and that's the point where we need to put the materials that we're trying to find the melting point of, or whatever we're trying to work on, whatever we're trying to heat up, has to be 18.08 meters from the vertex. So if someone were to make a mistake and not build this correctly, they could end up frying the wrong thing.